When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Quick 15-second promo for Purple Stride in April. Go!
purplestride.org/Team Trek.
We're a team! We're a team!
There's our leader, Kitty, our vision of hope.
Hey, this is Mark Altman of Inglorious Trexperts in the 430 movie. And if you're a fan of our podcast, you don't want to miss Deck 78. Available now by subscribing at TREKPSERTSHOLIDAY.com. This is a bonus podcast full of great discussions about popular culture, film, and television. By your command, here's a sneak peek.
She was putting out literal fires. You know, like there were a lot of the people working on the film were having like nervous breakdowns, you know, because they were away from their families for 6 months. You know, like, I mean, like it's a lot to juggle. You know, and everybody I talked to, you know, said that she just, you know, she did it masterfully, and you know, it felt very familial. If you know, it didn't feel like a cold kind of, you know.
No, it's how people used to describe Cubby Broccoli. He knew how to take care of the cast. Well, at least they knew how to take care of the principal cast and the American crew and the British crew. It's like you have these stories about these poor Mexican extras out in the desert, 108 degrees in the still suits, who would then have to walk home and have no water. And it's horrifying, you know, it's just awful.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
they can always sip from the catch pockets in their suits. So to be fair,
I always thought it would have been funny if when Sting and Kyle were fighting at the end, if like Sting like punctured Kyle's suit and just a big stream of shit came out of it. But yeah,
that's the Alan Smithy
to look
version.
Forward to in Dune 2 from Denis Villeneuve.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's definitely going to be in there. But no, like, what you just said, like, you know, talking about, you know, the plight of, you know, all these poor Mexican extras, you know, a lot of whom were vagrants, basically, who are being paid in shoes, you know, like that's not the kind of thing you get to read in a studio sanctioned.
No.
But
unfortunately, that's one of the perks that they had working down in Churubusco.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the reasons why they were there, because they could get very cheap extra crew members.
Yeah, they made a $70 or $80 million movie for 45 million. Yeah, whatever.
But the flip side of that is you also tell a story about how Tony and Bob and Raffaella hire all these women off the street who basically can't afford to support their families, and they throw work at them. And then they keep having them, even when they run out of work, they keep giving them stuff to do to keep them on the payroll.
Right.
So that they can, and they said they would basically take a bullet for these people because they were so grateful, you know, for them. Basically, they were making more money than they ever made in their lives and able to support their families and get, you know, off the street, you know, and into, you know, and work for the studio. And some of them still have, you know, careers in the Mexican film industry because of the opportunities they got on Dune.
Yeah, everything is relative. You know, it's like, like.
So subscribe today at TREKSPERTSPlus.com and don't miss a single episode of Deck 78. Fire the rockets.
Come, they told me. Ba-rum-pa-pa-bum. A newborn king to see. Ba-rum-pa-pa-bum. Our finest gifts we bring. Ba-rum-pa-pum-pum. To lay before the king. Ba-rum-pa-pa-bum. Rum-pa-pa-pum. Rum-pa-pa-pum. So, to honor him, ba-rum-pa-pa-pum. When we come.
Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is Darren Doctorman.
And this is Ashley Miller.
And we are The Inglorious
Treksperts with special guest Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, it's good to be here because, I've got the power, which we'll talk about later.
You've got the power. You're a master of the universe, aren't you?
Yes.
That was a very different thing in the 80s.
It's true. I'm master of all I survey.
This is exciting. This is exciting. We've been getting such a great response so far, but we're not even. Well, we're kind of halfway there.
Almost.
And we're halfway there. We are living on a prayer.
It's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. We're getting close to Christmas, and we're just knocking these out. Our Inglorious Treksperts Holiday Special 10 by 10 lists. That's 10 top 10 lists. You've already heard some of them. You've heard the massive Star Trek's best seasons. You've heard Star Trek's best adversaries. You've heard Star Trek's best books, fiction and nonfiction. And Star Trek best merchandise. And now it's Star Trek's best pop culture merchandise. What? It's Star Trek's best pop culture references.
So we've been rammed by the Battlestar Galactica fantasy cruise ship. The captain has fallen overboard. We need you. Come on, everyone, to the lifeboats.
Finally, here's my chance to captain a real ship. Come, Beaker, to the bridge.
Hello, George. Hello, Beaker. Captain Kangaroo, I was just about to assume command of the ship.
Oh, well, I'm afraid that's not possible, George. You see, I'm the senior officer on this ship. You see, right now, I am Commodore of the Sector, Kangaroo.
Hi, Commodore.
Live long and prosper, George.
Mr. Beaker, set ego for bruise.
This is references in popular culture to Star Trek. Star Trek's very unique in that even people who aren't Star Trek fans, they know Star Trek because it's so permeated the zeitgeist, or at least it had once upon a time. Didn't it? Isn't that true? I mean, even if somebody is not a Star Trek fan, they know Star Trek. They know the characters.
Well, they think they know Star Trek, like the producers.
Sometimes people who make Star Trek think they know Star Trek.
Wait, what?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Look, Mom thinks she knows Star Trek, right? Because she knows the pointed-eared guy, Dr. Spock, and traveling through space, and and the red planet. They know all about Star Trek that they need to know.
It's true,
but they really don't.
Yeah, and before we get to our list, I want to tell you that the Treksperts are bringing you a very, very special Christmas present. And for those of you who don't celebrate Christmas, let's just say it's a Festivus present.
Right.
We're bringing a bonus episode of the podcast called Picard's Trek Legacy, in which we interview Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, Terry Metalis, Todd Stashwick. And it's a great episode.
Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Picard Season 3 and the future of Star Trek Legacy. So you don't want to miss that. It's going to be a very special bonus episode. It's not going to interrupt the holiday list. It's going to be a bonus episode because there's no stopping the holiday train.
I want to talk about the bonus situation.
It's just like with Rudolph and Herbert.
That would be our alien holiday special.
So yeah, is Alien a Christmas movie? No, it's not. But on Her Majesty's Secret Services,
because they're asking the great question, do they know where Christmas trees?
Is Alien a Christmas movie? Well, it does have a virgin birth.
Oh, boy. I don't know if that was a virgin birth. I'm pretty sure everyone on that crew is screwed.
Hey, Rob, you got any good Hanukkah gifts?
Dude, I haven't got any great Hanukkah gifts, but I got a good Hanukkah box that had 5 Exo 6 figures in it.
Whoa!
Put your Kirk in a box.
What?
Yeah, they were ones I got. I got Quark. I got Shran that I was waiting for. I got Roxanne. I got B'Elanna Torres.
Why did you buy that?
Yeah, what do you mean about it? Who says I bought it?
Oh, okay.
And I rounded out my Voyager figures. Now I just need Neelix, and I got the whole crew.
Are you going to keep those?
I have to say, of course I'm going to keep them all. What are you talking about? Come on, man. X06 is killing it. They just re-upped their license with Paramount. You know, it was coming to an end.
The one licensee that's actually doing okay because they don't care about making money.
Did you see the picture that Nanjin posted of Disco McCoy?
I did. Looks great.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Well, now that Playmates has dropped out again, it's clear sailing.
Yeah. What a shock.
Yeah. It's too bad. But Nanjin he's adding Jerry Ryan 7 of 9 from Picard Season 3 to the line. So there's going to be 5.
Yeah, the Worf from season 3 looks great.
It looks fantastic.
Looks really awesome.
Really good.
They are so accurate that if you stick a pin in your Worf, Michael Dorn screams. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. I mean, I'm really, really happy with them. And, go to 3D Trekker and start getting my 6-scale TOS bridge.
Rob, you're living the life.
If you get 6 of those, you can build a normal 1-to-1 scale bridge.
Well, yeah, like what I was saying earlier, I mean, I feel I need to make 12 full-scale bridges, 12 or 13.
12? Why do you need 12 full-scale bridges?
You need one for each ship. You need the Constellation, which you can make in a wrecked version.
Well,
nobody can even be in that bridge.
Oh, wrecked. I thought you said any wrecked version.
Did you tell your mom? Maybe Nancy Burnett will get it for you like she did when she got you all those...
the books?
Enterprise, yeah.
No, the 3D printed TOS bridge is a little bit more expensive. Instead of 60 cents, it's probably 60 grand.
Well, you're going to need a 6-scale Commodore Wesley.
Do I? I guess I would.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever made Commodore Wesley as an action
figure. No, not Paul Wesley. Commodore Wesley.
Commodore Wesley, yes.
I've got a promotion from Devil in the Dark.
Yeah. I mean, with the amount of figures they're putting out, X06 could probably get to Commodore Wesley at some point.
No, they'll just keep doing Voyager figures.
Yeah.
No, because they're done.
I hope so.
Unless they decide to go back and do
What if they make Kurtwood Smith from Year of Hell?
Nice.
I've always wanted a Kurtwood Smith action figure.
He's not above the law.
No, he's not. And you know what I want to, but if he does that, I want a Kurtwood Smith action figure that if you press its back, it just says, just leave. Right?
Right.
Like, I just want a talking Kurtwood Smith doll.
And you fly.
But he says he's done with motion picture. How could he be done with motion picture without an Ilea?
Well, because
he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
He's too scared. Yeah,
I said it.
Nothing to be scared of.
Sonic shower.
Don't be scared.
You can do B'Elanna Torres, but no Ilea.
I mean, and it would be great to have an Ilea. I remember when even Playmates had come out with it back in the 90s. It's like, oh my gosh, this is great.
I'd like an Ensign Perez.
Yeah. Keep holding your breath for that one. Ensign Perez.
Wow.
Carbon-based units?
Yeah, humans, you moron. Shut the hell up.
I mean, I can
carbon-based unit right here.
Nothing is out of the realm of possibility. Playmates, by the way, is continuing to make ships and role-playing stuff, though.
Yeah, their ships are, I haven't seen the new ones, but their ships from the 90s were great.
Yeah, they were great.
They were great. I mean, for the price, that Deep Space Nine was killer.
It was killer.
Yeah. So, pretty awesome. Okay, but today we're talking top 10 best pop culture references. This is references to Star Trek in the popular culture, of which it has been a staple for these nearly 60 years, going all the way back to Spock on Carol Burnett. So it's a pretty amazing how Star Trek is so much a part of the popular culture. And we're going to talk about that as we count down our top 10 moments of Star Trek pop culture references. And as always, we start with number 10 and Darren Doctorman.
Well, number 10 is it's a fun little jaunt into Star Trek time from a show that was in itself a jaunt into the past. It's from the Wonder Years.
Interesting specimens. Spock, where are we? It appears, Captain, that we are on an alien planet inhabited by strange beings with long hair and very short skirts. Who are you? What do you want from us? Highly illogical question, Captain. These are alien beings. They think and act in ways you cannot hope to understand.
Well, what can we do? There must be some way of fighting back. Bones, Scotty.
I'm afraid we have no choice but to submit to their every whim. You're their captives. They control us completely.
No, this can't be. We're human beings. Can't you understand that? We're
men. And Fred Savage as Kevin has some problems with local girls. And he has a dream sequence that put those girls into the roles of the bringers of pain and delight from Spock's brain. And Kevin and his friends are in Starfleet uniforms, and they have it's basically a little skit, a Star Trek skit about the boys getting zapped by the girls' power bracelets. And it's pretty great because it has pretty much the most accurate uniforms I've ever seen in a separate show. They paid attention to the details, and it's really well done. And Fred Savage himself does a pretty passable impersonation of Kevin Pollak's impersonation of William Shatner, which is it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's a nice note to those of us who sort of grew up in that time period, and how we thought about Star Trek and how it applied to our real lives. So I believe it's up on YouTube. You can see the clip. It's a lot of fun.
I think it's so cool that Star Trek was so much a part of popular culture that a network series, a network comedy, would do a homage to Spock's brain, and people would have a clue what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, could you just imagine if it was being made now? And you did a reference to an episode of Discovery or even Masks from Next Gen? Nobody know what it is.
No.
Nobody would know.
But you see Spock's brain, you know it instantly.
What do you mean nobody would know?
Deck officer.
Well.
Deck officer.
I mean, it's incredible that this would have some kind of cultural resonance.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun because, of course, this is an episode that is largely derided by fans. People who don't even know what it is tend to criticize it without even having seen it.
But cold pizza, even bad Star Trek is good.
Well, I don't know if that's true.
Yes,
even
it
bad
is.
original Star Trek.
It depends on how cold the pizza is.
Yeah.
I mean, and what was on the pizza. So if there's pineapple on the pizza, that was never good in the first place.
Okay? Let's not start
Is there
that.
pineapple in Spock's brain? I don't know. You don't know.
No, there's
Well,
no pineapple in Spock's brain, but there is pineapple in The Children Shall Lead.
That's
Oh,
But
God.
There's one big pineapple.
But isn't it interesting, though, that they chose Spock's brain? They could have chose any episode of Star Trek, but I think that what was really interesting about that particular choice is it made, I can't imagine, unless they made Winnie Cooper Miramonte, and that, of course, didn't end well. So, it was.
Winnie Cooper's pregnant with Fred Savage's baby
She
and
gets
is stoned to death.
I am Kevin.
But I'd like to see that episode.
It was a pretty great, I mean, they did it was a really interesting choice of episode to do because it would be, I think, a lot harder to have done one of the great episodes of Star Trek.
right.
For them. And
As short as the segment is, it would be tough to cram all of City on the Edge of Forever into a 3-minute clip.
even though Winnie would have made a great Edith Keeler.
Well, yeah. Let me help.
Well, hey,
let me help.
Can you imagine Daniel Stern doing the narration on that one? I learned something very important that day. If you love someone, push her in front of a bus.
Sidebar alert. Okay, this is tangent alert. Okay, so you just mentioned Daniel Stern. I'm now going to leave this episode and sidebar with Rob Burnett. How great is Daniel Stern on For All Mankind, Rob?
So great. He is so great. again, first of all, I love the entire cast of For All Mankind, but hiring Daniel Stern to take over as the director of NASA,
he's great.
He's so great. And as far as and you know, it's so he's tried to be so like winsome and go get them boys, but then when he's talking to the, you know, talking to the head of Roscosmos, who by the way is Svetlana. I'm gonna admit something to you guys right now. She teaches here in LA.
Oh, really?
I think Long Beach. I sent her an email to ask if I can interview.
Oh, good. She's great.
She has not written me back, but I have a mad crush on her. Her character is awesome.
You love the Russians,
ass.
Rob.
I do. I have a thing for Russians. What can I say?
Yeah. But I have to say, this whole thing with Elena going to Moscow.
Oh,
it's
dude.
This is not gonna go well.
No, it's not gonna go well.
Not gonna be good for Margot.
No. Free Margot, by the way. # free Margot.
Anyway.
In every
free
box.
Margot.
Ren Schmidt.
So okay. We're back. We're back to an episode already in progress.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. There's nobody else I can talk to about that show.
Is he still playing his character from the Wet Bandits?
Yeah. He's still and his character from Breaking Away. He's on bicycles and he's a thief.
Yes.
So he's
and he has
a
a
Home
nail through
Alone
his foot.
Breaking Away crossover.
And he's a Jaffo.
Let's not disparage
That's Blue Thunder,
anyone.
dude. Come on.
Catch you later, Rob. Okay.
Another Star Trek reference.
Oh, yes.
Soren.
That was the Wonder Years homage to Spock's brain at number 10, which brings us to number 9 and Ashley Edward Miller.
Your microphone is off.
Or not. I know. He's just like he's mouthing things.
Microphone.
But
I know. It's sorry, I was protecting you all from my barking dogs.
We need ALS. We need sign language during this podcast.
Well, I can probably make signs. Anyway, I've been thinking during this holiday season that we've been celebrating with these podcasts about presents, about rewards. And, you know, it occurs to me that love is life's sweetest reward. And if you let it flow, it will flow back to you. So I think that it's time at number 9 that we set a course for love. 29 years ago.
Wow.
Patrick Stewart appeared on Saturday Night Live. He famously introduced salt and pepper. And he appeared as the captain in Love Boat, The Next Generation. It's a pretty great Saturday Night Live sketch. And for me, you know, when you're a Star Trek fan, especially then, there's no internet. You know, you don't know, like, does everybody know what this thing is? Or am I, like, in a bubble? When Patrick Stewart appears on Saturday Night Live and does this sketch, and everybody is losing it. Like, and by the way, my favorite moment of that is you got to get in touch with what's keeping you from touching. You dig? When you see that, it's very validating. You suddenly realize that this next generation thing has taken on a life of its own. That it has a sort of a cultural footprint that it is at least comparable to the cultural footprint of the show that preceded it. And you know, Patrick Stewart's a very funny guy, and it was just it was
He's
completely delightful.
He's seen everything. We talked about that on our episode devoted to his memoir. Talked about our favorite Patrick Stewart moments, and that was high on our list. His cameo and extras, where he's seen everything. He's so good in that.
So good.
Yeah. But the Love Boat Enterprise is delightful, and obviously a great cameo from Bernie Capel of Get Smart and the Love Boat. And it's funny because Patrick at a convention shortly thereafter auctioned off the miniature of the Love Boat Enterprise to fans. I don't know who has that, but who knows? That could be the next Greg Jean auction. It could be Greg Jean has the Love Boat Enterprise, but I wish I had it because
you know we should put out a call on the interwebs when we post this episode and just see if we can crowdsource the location of the Love Boat Enterprise.
Rafe Needleman
see who
has
won
it.
Rafe, it'd be amazing if Rafe had it.
Well,
no, I don't know who has it, but
has
let's see if we can find it, because they found the 3-foot Enterprise that was in Gene Roddenberry's office until it disappeared many years ago. We're going to find the Love Boat Enterprise, and we'll be doing a real public
belongs in
service
a
to
museum.
America.
Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying there's any connection to this. However, about 2 years before that skit on Saturday Night Live, I made a recording of the Love Boat theme with Next Generation lyrics, and we played it on Talk Trek. And it set up that whole thing, baby. And I'm just saying, there's probably not a connection, but I did it first.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, because you're clever. You're a clever guy.
I suppose. But, clever is nothing without a big enough audience. So there you are. Now we have such an audience.
Well, it was the convention on the air.
It was. Unfortunately, it was mostly air.
Convention. Yeah. Well, look, a lot of those loyal fans came to, I'm sure, are listening to TREKSPERTS and deeply appreciated.
Who'd have thought from such tiny beginnings this empire would be built?
They're deeply appreciative for the Trek-ucation they get from you.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Okay, that was number 9. The Love Boat Enterprise is seen on Saturday Night Live, which was a delightful skit from our friends at Saturday Night Live. And that brings us to number 8. Number 8 is an interesting curiosity. A lot of people may not be familiar with it. It is comes from across the pond, but it's for a very American staple, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So, reverse thrust.
Hailing frequencies open.
Scotty, we need more power. I can't hold it much longer, Captain.
We're losing the Colonel's signal, sir.
Well, what was Spock's order? His usual, Captain. The 2-piece combo. Okay, give me a 2-piece combo.
Aye, sir.
No, wait. Make it 3 pieces. Leave them up, Scotty. Status report. Close call, Captain. Almost lost the coleslaw on that one.
Captain's log, stardate 2453.87. The crisis was averted, our cravings satisfied. The chicken was excellent.
Take us out of here, Mr. Sulu. Warp factor 2. Hey, who took my fries?
And in this commercial, the crew of the Enterprise is very hungry.
Yes.
And they feast on KFC because it's finger-licking good. And but they recreate the original Star Trek bridge, and they use a bunch of sound effects, and they recast. There's a Shatner impersonator, as they usually have in a lot of these commercials.
It's pretty darn good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And it made me want Kentucky Fried Chicken, especially those little custard things. Remember the pudding? It was like vanilla and chocolate pudding. You remember those little cups that they gave you? It was like the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then they had these great mashed potatoes. I haven't had it in years. And then they had these little pudding cups.
Yeah, they called them parfait cups.
Parfait cups. That's what they were. I mean, I haven't had Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, the last time I had it. No, I haven't had it. I used to, as a kid, I had it a lot. But I haven't had it since I was in Bulgaria, because there's a point at which you're overseas and you're having the local cuisine and you just need something that's really American. And so you're in a mall and Kentucky Fried Chicken is everywhere there. And I'm like, I'm going to have Kentucky Fried Chicken. I hadn't had it in probably 10, 15, 20 years. And I have to say, it really hit the spot. Never had it again. But
No, I got to say that I believe that the Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial is doubly on point for this particular holiday special. Because, as I understand it, it is traditional in Japan to order and consume Kentucky Fried Chicken at Christmas. It's what you do. Yes.
Oh, konnichiwa.
Yeah.
Arigato.
That's what I said.
And in China, you have a duck that's smiling at you.
So maybe what we should do, instead of going for a good steak, We should for the holidays.
We should go to Kentucky
Fried Chicken. We should have done Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, maybe not.
Solid plan. That's officer thinking.
We didn't go for steak though. We had a nice Italian meal at Dantana's. Unfortunately, Rob couldn't come. He was working, and Ashley doesn't live in Los Angeles anymore. But we had a delightful dinner at Dantana's.
I was so excited about that. Oh my God.
It was good. It was good.
I've been to Dantana's one other time, but that's a story for another day.
But yeah, it was a good time.
Too bad we couldn't bring Robert Urich with us.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, but we had a good meal and hadn't been there in a long time, and it held up.
It was a lovely evening.
The new Shields held.
That's right.
And it was a lovely evening. It was, and with a lot of good friends, good times, and still can't convince Kay Rydell to take over the podcast from me. She says I'm not crazy enough to commit to doing some stupid weekly podcast.
She's smart. She said no.
She's smart. Okay, well that was the British Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, and it's interesting. It's not. You wouldn't think Kentucky Fried Chicken would necessarily be a license. There's a lot of fast food commercials, but see, this is when we say pop culture references. It's not like Burger King offering the glasses,
right?
Or McDonald's offering the Star Trek Happy Meal. They're selling something. Yeah. That's not a reference. Like Kentucky Fried Chicken, they didn't have like and you can get a drumstick, and it can be like the Mako root, or it was like not something. They weren't offering something. They weren't offering like a replicator parfait or something. It was just using Star Trek to sell Kentucky Fried Chicken. Whereas the McDonald's commercials, like when Gary Owens does the McDonald's commercials and speaking in Klingon and stuff, that's promoting a Star Trek product. That's not the same thing. That's not a pop culture reference. That's more that belongs in our merchandising episode, right? Happy Meals and Burger King glasses or Star Trek, God forbid, Star Trek 3 glasses, all that stuff.
Those are just about the best glasses they
Star
ever
Trek 3
offer,
glasses.
actually.
Those are the ones where if you wear them, you watch the movie and think it's good.
No.
Is that right? Oh, no, you mean like glasses, like that you drink out of.
Drink out.
Oh,
yes. Remember, McDonald's did Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Working out.
Star Trek 2 was Burger King.
Yep.
Star Trek 3
was Taco Bell.
It's amazing. It's just like the licensees. Star Trek can't keep a fast food restaurant, but they all think this is going to be huge, and then no one wants them, right? So it's like, it's the same thing. They just go from fast food to fast food to fast food. But every movie, it's a different licensee.
But the great thing,
Star Trek 5, Jack in the Box.
We couldn't get Star Wars, but we can get Star Trek, which is the next best thing.
The great thing,
maybe not so
Star
much.
in it. The kids love it.
They had a Taco Bell commercial with this girl who was supposed to be working the counter. And the funniest thing, she holds up this glass and she says, "You can experience the magic of Faltorpan."
Oh my God, that's awesome!
It's hilarious. We got to find that and put it in here.
We got to find that. I'm writing that down now for our producers. I'm going to put that down. They got to try and find that.
But those glasses are great. They're the best engineered glasses. They have the two sort of bulbous things on the bottom of it. They're beautiful and they have great artwork on them. And I have all of them in my cabinet. I drink from them every day.
Till the next earthquake.
Don't even.
That's what I should have put for. I didn't have it on our merchandise list, but when the Northridge earthquake hit, I'd only been living in California for like a year or two, and I didn't have a flashlight, and all the power went out. It was complete darkness. It was 4 a.m, but I did have a Star Trek: The Next Generation phaser, which lit up when I pressed the button, and I used that to safely get out of the 4th story of my apartment building at the time.
Wow,
I remember that.
I know, right? And I wish that should have been my number one, or at least
they
my
could hear you
honorary
coming
mention.
downstairs because it was going.
Oh my God! Yeah, people were giving me weird looks because they were like on the, trying to hold on to the walls to find complete darkness. Gosh. And then I came by with my phaser going, choo, 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 choo,
That's
choo,
hilarious.
choo, choo.
Your
Lighting up the
phaser
whole
went
place.
choo, choo.
Is that the sound it makes?
That is not a great phaser sound. I mean, Denise Crosby will tell us that a phaser goes bzz, bzz, bzz.
Oh, dude, Rob. So we had Denise Crosby. We interviewed her at the convention we were at, GalaxyCon. She sings this song. She used to be in a punk band, Black Christmas. It's hysterical.
She came to my house when she was making Trekkies too.
That's right.
Oh, nice. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I bet she didn't sing Black Christmas, though.
No, but when
Probably
she came to
sang
my
something
door,
else.
I said, "You started the Klingon Civil War."
Oh, but was she doing a thing on your collection? Or
Yeah,
what was
she
that?
interviewed me for Trekkies too, for Roger and I Guys Trekkies too. She came in my house.
That was in the before.
I never
time.
saw the second one. Is it good?
It is good. If you get the DVD, my ex-wife's all over the special features too.
Oh, Yelena. We love Yelena.
Yeah,
oh my God.
She was great. She still is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She's Russian. She's Ukrainian, pardon me.
Ukrainian, yeah. Watch it.
Yeah.
They
that's
don't.
a
You do not
important
refer
distinction
to
right now.
Ukrainian as Russian. But
So yeah. So
speaking of commercials,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of pop culture.
Yeah, let's go to the big board.
Okay, so that was number 8, the British Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial. Taking us to number 7 is Robert Meyer Burnett.
well, in the early 90s, Star Trek was at the beginning of experiencing a renaissance. Obviously, The Next Generation was very popular. And in 1990, believe it or not, the British National Power and Power Gen commercial in the UK went live. And what's really interesting about this is you could say that this commercial is actually a canonical mini episode of Star Trek if you wanted to.
Meteorite storm! Scotty, beam us up! Scotty! Scotty! Don't worry, Captain. It's only a shower. I don't need a brolly, you wally! Beam us up! Captain, I haven't got the power!
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Try, man, try. Power! More power! The man's power, man. Uh-oh. Start again.
Well, he certainly hasn't got the power. Good afternoon. But you could have National Power and Power Gen. To register for a prospectus in the generating company's share offers, call 0272 272 272.
It was actually shot on the Next Generation engineering set with James Doohan as Scotty. And William Shatner was on a planet that was in the middle of a meteor storm with a number of his crewmates. And Shatner literally, I mean, this commercial is pretty damn big budget. And you can find it on YouTube. But they're running into this cave. And Kirk's calling the Enterprise, asking Scotty, you got to beam us up. And there's not enough power. You know, where are we going to? We're going to get it from the National Power and Power Gen Administration in the UK, apparently. And then, of course, they do that, and they're able to beam everybody onto the ship. And of course, Shatner, his body has been swapped with one of his female crewmen. And it's actually, when you look at the commercial now, again, it's on YouTube. It's pretty great. Yeah. And then at the end, the band Snap comes on and sings, "I've got the power." I mean, it's just so random and so British. And then, but it was
that was better than my phaser noise, Rob.
I mean, it was it's a legitimate commercial. And a few years after, in '93, MCI. People are like, "Who's MCI?" MCI was a phone company. They did a friends and family advertisement because back in the day, how could you get a friends and this is before cell phones, kids. You could get friends and family party lines or whatever and sign up your friends. They did a commercial.
Well, also, you got to explain that landline phones were very expensive.
Yes.
And if you called out of the city you're in, it was more expensive.
Right.
You'd have to pay more money. Your monthly phone bill was it wasn't like flat fee.
No, and they got the Seven Dwarves, the principal cast of Star Trek, the original series, with a special guest star at the end, Jonathan Frakes.
Hi, I'm Chris, and this is Anna with MCI. She recently started a great friends and family calling circle.
A group of friends that wanted to get back in touch.
I believe I actually said we should resume communicating.
So Anna called and I signed up.
And Chris called me. I thought if anybody belongs in friends and family, it's us.
I used to get tired of staring at those faces. Now I kind of miss them.
I joined to save the 20% because when I call him, I end up talking to an answering machine, which is more interesting than he is.
I'm usually home. I'm just selective about the calls I take.
When they were forming the circle, they obviously saved the best for last.
Oh, that's why she called me next.
Who is that?
How did he get in here? There seems to be some error.
I believe you were in the wrong circle.
Call and start saving an extra 20%.
And they have it starts out with Lieutenant Uhura with Nichelle Nichols, communication, and then of course there's George Takei and Walter Koenig and James Doohan and DeForest Kelley and of course Nimoy and Shatner, and they're all like busting on each other. I mean, it's really funny. It's a pretty funny commercial. And then, of course, as you get into the Shatner says, well, they saved the best for last when he finally appears. And then, of course, Jonathan Frakes shows up and they're like, how'd you get in here? And you can't, again, it's on YouTube. You can watch it. It'll put a smile on your face. It couldn't have been cheap to get them all to do this because this was it was 93, 94 era. So that's when, we've talked about how in the past, when Next Generation went off the air, it was at the height of its popularity. Yeah. Time magazine had the Generations cover with Patrick Stewart and William Shatner on it. So arguably in the time that this commercial was made, Star Trek was at its most valuable.
It was peak Star Trek time.
Star Trek time. And it's a wonderful ad, and you go back and you watch that now, and it'll make you choke up because many of those people are no longer with us, and it's really
including MCI.
I was going to say that, including MCI. Long ago, they have not been here, but it was really interesting with this Kentucky Fried Chicken ad, and then these two ads. That they felt that Star Trek was enough of a pop culture phenomenon that everybody knew Star Trek, that they could use Star Trek, not just the actors and what's interesting is, like maybe they were on sets. I don't know where they filmed the actors, but they're in these, it looks like they're at their houses, their homes. Right. And it's wild to see in this MCI ad, everybody in casual attire, just kind of hanging out, like talking on the phone. And I'm surprised they never did one of those Budweiser ads. What's up? I mean,
what's shocking to me is that George Takei has Shatner in his calling circle.
Clearly a mistake. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
But it's both of these ads are delightful ads, and they couldn't have been cheap, either one of them. Yeah. The British ad, especially, like, they're on like some Planet Hell set or something, a cave set. Yeah. There's actual pyrotechnics going off, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, and it's the contemporary turnabout intruder at the time, because Captain Kirk is combined into the body of a woman because he didn't have enough power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the MCI commercial and the British Power commercial from the early 90s. Both terrific commercials involving the principal Star Trek cast. And speaking of power, we need more power, Ashley Edward Miller, at number 6.
Hey, Darren, you ever watch Star Trek?
Yeah. You mean that show?
Yeah, it's Star Trek, USS Enterprise. All right. Now, you remember when the Klingons were going to blow up the Enterprise and Captain Kirk calls down to Scotty? He says, Scotty, I got to have more power.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, what does he need? He needs warp speed. Warp speed. Now, I'm Captain Kirk. You're Scotty. I need more power. I'm telling you, if you do not get this radio up, 1 billion people are going to die. Now, it's all up to you. I know it's a shitty deal, but you got it. Can you handle it?
We're on a submarine. We're not on a starship.
Oh, Scotty, you're fired. Everybody's going to die. Crimson Tide.
You ever watch Star Trek?
Star Trek, you know, Star Trek and USS Enterprise. All right, you remember when the Klingons were going to blow up the Enterprise and Captain Kirk calls down to Scotty? He said, Scotty, I got to have more power. He needs more speed. More speed, exactly. Well, I'm Captain Kirk. You're Scotty. I need more power. I'm telling you, if you do not get this radio up, 1 billion people are going to die. Now, it's all up to you. I know that's a shitty deal, but you got it. Can you handle it? Scotty. Hi, Captain.
Okay, that little exchange came from Crimson Tide. Those lines were much better delivered by Denzel Washington. One of Tony Scott's greatest films, maybe my favorite Tony Scott film next to True Romance. There's another thing that movie shares in common with True Romance. There is some dialogue by Quentin Tarantino, which includes that particular exchange. Now, here's what's special, I think, about that particular Star Trek reference in pop culture. What's different about it? So far, everything we've talked about, you know, the expectation of the people who made these, they would get it. Quentin Tarantino has never in his life given two wet farts whether or not the audience understands the references that he's making.
Right.
He makes them for his own joy, to tell you something about the character, whether you know it or not. And what's brilliant about that exchange is, even if you know nothing about Star Trek, you know exactly what Denzel Washington is talking about. So it's actually one of my very favorite, dialogue references to Star Trek in the movies. It's certainly, for me, the most memorable. I mean, how can you go wrong with Denzel Washington just, making such an impassioned plea that is also a nerd reference? I mean, talk about being a nerd cool. Denzel Washington made us all cool for like 45 seconds.
It's true. It's a great moment, and in a great movie. But it's that extra little bonus that kind of winking at the audience, and that at least a good portion of the audience is with you on that journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's interesting because I recently watched it because my son wanted to watch it because he heard there was a Kirby versus Mobius Silver Surfer reference. I, on the other hand, can't get enough of the Star Trek references. Of course, even though he's uncredited, this all came from the pen of Quentin Tarantino, who did an uncredited rewrite on the film, which is just terrific. And it's amazing to me. Look, obviously, Hunt for Red October is amazing, but this is the other sub-movie of that era that's absolutely brilliant. It's my favorite Tony Scott film. I know Ashley's is True Romance. I think it's just a brilliant movie, and it doesn't get any love. The Blu-ray is embarrassingly bad. There's no 4K. The streaming version is a very old transfer.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because this, to me, is a film. Gene Hackman, Denzel Washington, a very young pre-Sopranos, James Gandolfini, just a fantastic George Dzunda from Basic Instinct. I mean, it's a classic 90s movie, and yet it's very obscure. But for our purposes, it is one of the great Star Trek references because he's a motivational speaker, Denzel. Right. He's using Star Trek to motivate his crew. So it's like, remember when Scotty needed more power? And it's such a great way to use Star Trek, to save the entire world, to avoid the post-atomic horror. And I love this movie. I love the Star Trek reference. I know some people felt it was a little too on the nose, a little too Quentin-y, but love it.
But to them, I say nuts. And I'll tell you why. I mean, nuts for so many reasons, other than the fact that it's a great line in a great moment in a great film. I think, Mark, Darren, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Crimson Tide not our Friday pick for our 4:30 movie, 6 Degrees of Star Trek episode?
I think
I would swear that it was, because Crimson Tide is a pretty great Star Trek film.
Well, I was about to say that because the end of the film, the two people that are at each other's throats, Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington, when they go up against the military tribunal, the Navy tribunal, they're both shown as acting according to how they should have acted.
Yeah.
And
you were both right and you were both wrong. That's Jason Robards.
It's so great. And that's such a great ending of that.
No villains,
movie.
Only adversaries.
That's exactly right. And a shout out to the incredible Hans Zimmer score in that movie too.
It's great. That was back when he wrote his own music. It's so great, that Hans Zimmer score. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Roll Tide.
I love that score.
Yeah, amazing. I play that all the
time.
The
tide is high.
And it's rolling on. And I want it to be your number one, which makes me Jonathan Frakes or something.
Danger runs deep.
That's what she said. Damn,
great
I ruined
Star
it,
Trek reference.
You ruined
Star
it.
Trek reference. Which brings us to number 5 and Darren Doctorman.
Back in the 90s, there was a little thing that we used to call television. And this was something that aired all at once across the country, and people would watch it. They didn't have any capability to start or stop it. It just happened, and you either watched it or you didn't. One of these shows in the early 90s was called The Ben Stiller Show. Yes, it's the same Ben Stiller that you know of from Zoolander. But this was sort of his first project, and it was a show on Fox, and he had Bob Odenkirk and Andy Dick and a couple other people that I can't remember. But on one episode...
Jeanine Garofalo?
Janine Garofalo?
Yeah, her.
Jesus
and Jeannie Garofalo, Joe Garagiola.
Janine Areola? What?
And on one of these episodes, he had a special guest star, James Doohan.
So in the gamesters of Triskelion, those battering rams that they had, I couldn't figure out whether or not they were actually, were they supposed to fight to the death or not?
No, will you stop it on the Star Trek questions? I've had enough of that, God, I get it, week in, week out, all the time, everybody Star Trek, hi, Scotty, come on. Can't we find some more interesting thing to talk about than Star Trek?
I'm sorry, yes.
And in it, he... Ben sort of played the role of a crazed fan. Now, I think that we know by now that he actually was a crazed fan. And he basically just wanted to talk Star Trek with Jimmy Doohan. And Jimmy in the show got a little upset with him and a little frustrated that all he wanted to do was talk about Star Trek. There is a dream sequence in the show where Ben dreams that he's best friends with Jimmy Doohan, best friends with Scotty. And it has them, going around to parks and hanging out and drinking and building plastic models of the Enterprise. It's really a hilarious look into the mind of Ben Stiller, because I think this is all 100% accurate. And it's so great, and Jimmy Doohan plays it well, and he's part of the gag. I think he's not as part of the gag as everyone else thinks he is, but it's really well done. It's hilarious, and it really shows what a huge Star Trek fan Ben Stiller was and is, and it's a really lovely sort of tribute to being a fan.
Well, his company is called Red Hour Productions.
Exactly. That,
reference, of course, to Return of the Archons.
Return of the Archons, the Red Hour. Your daddy can put them up, can't he?
I would be remiss if I did not mention that Ben Stiller did Mark and I a big solid for Shatner's 70th birthday. And he was working on I knew he was on the Paramount lot working on Zoolander. Mm-hmm. And randomly called the Paramount lot and left a message asking him if he would appear in Shatner's 70th birthday that Mark and I were making. And we went to the lot and filmed him.
Look, that is one of my great regrets, that we do not have that birthday video that we made for Shatner, because it was so freaking great. We talked to so many people, everybody from Leonard to Ben Stiller to the head of Paramount at the time, Jonathan Dolgen. ton, Larry Thompson, ton of people. And Ben Stiller was so game. We went out to the, he was editing Zoolander at the time. And we go out and he starts to do this whole bit. He goes, I'm so excited. Bill, this is where you filmed Barbary Coast. And he just does this whole riff on Barbary Coast. And he says, I can't believe it. You had 1,000 faces. And it's so funny. And it's just like, I can't believe this. We have it. I mean, it was on VHS. We kept a copy, but I don't know what happened to that VHS. And
it's lost, forever lost.
We sent it to Bill for his 70th birthday, and they showed it at his 70th birthday party, and he loved it. And it was so great. Everyone was so great. And I mean, that was the famous time where we went to Leonard's house and walked in, and he had the Zombies of the Stratosphere poster. Yeah. And he said, I feel like I know you guys. And we said, well, we made Free Enterprise. And that's when he said, get out of my house. and started giving us all the stuff about how come Captain Kirk, he's your hero, not Spock. And
but Ben was cool. We even took him out to where where they shot the end of Star Trek 4, where the bird of prey crashes into San Francisco Bay. Totally. They've still had, it's a parking lot, but it kind of dips down, and you've still got it's still there today, I think, where you've got the sky background, the cloudy sky background. It's
a parking lot, but they can flood the tank when they need to.
And he was really cool. Like, he was so game. He didn't know us. Just randomly called us edit bay.
We got a ton of people for that video, and everybody was really great. God, that would be such a great thing to it's 30 years later, right? Wait, 23 years later. It's 23 years later. Yeah. It's like, how great would it be to play that video?
How would it be?
We don't have it. We don't have it. It's really sad.
Lost, like Tears in Rain.
I mean, we don't have the raw. We don't have the raw footage.
All these happy birthdays I've collected, lost.
I mean, I don't even know what happened to that raw footage, because it was probably like high 8 we shot it in.
Well, I was working when I cut that together. I want to say that I was working at Curdy Pellerin, on Lord of the Rings and stuff, the DVD special features, because that's where I cut it, in that edit bay. So
it's probably on the long lost 17th disc of Lord of the Rings.
It's on there. It's somewhere. It's somewhere in there.
It's accidentally been included as a special feature.
Yeah, but that was a great sketch comedy show in the early 90s for the nascent Fox channel.
Yeah.
Where they were trying a lot of cool stuff. And it didn't last very long. Yeah, a lot of awful stuff too. But it didn't last very long, but it is delightful. They did some really great sketches like Die Hard 8. And Stiller played John McClane. But this is, I think, this first or second episode, I'm friends with Scotty. And, it's so memorable because I think it's what every Star Trek fan dreams of, being friends with their favorite Star Trek actor. And I guess it resonated for us. We made we'll get to that. But it's really a delightful little sketch. And I'm not surprised that it's our number 5 pick on our greatest pop culture Star Trek moments. And that brings us to number 4 and Robert Meyer Burnett. Well, I don't know if we could talk about this, but he's going to talk about it anyway.
It's always funny when you see Star Trek come up in references in a pop culture thing that itself becomes a big part of pop culture. And David Fincher's adaptation of Chuck, if I mispronounce his name, Palahniuk? Palahniuk? Is it Palahniuk?
Yeah.
Chuck
Hot Whistle.
His book.
Just ask Mark. I'm sure he can figure it out.
Chuck Palahniuk's, the adaptation, David Fincher's very famous adaptation, Fight Club, that obviously gained in esteem. It didn't do that well at the box office, but has become a cultural touchstone. Even to this day, it's still being referenced in movies like Bottoms that came out a couple months back. But in this movie, of course, our nameless narrator, played by Ed Norton, is having a conversation with Brad Pitt's Tyler Durden. And the subject comes up, if you could fight anyone in a fight club, in the Fight Club scenario, who would you pick to fight? And Tyler Durden says he would like to fight Hemingway. And they're walking down the street, and Ed Norton thinks about it. He says, Shatner. I'd fight William Shatner.
If you could fight any celebrity, who would you fight? Alive or dead? Doesn't matter. Who'd be tough?
Hemingway. You?
Shatner. I'd fight William Shatner.
And then they get on a city bus to go to their destination. And I remember it's so out of left field. When I saw that movie for the first time on the Fox lot. And, no one really knew. I was knocked out by the movie. But in the middle of the movie, I probably giggled way more than I should have at that reference because it was so perfect. Because at that time, that movie came out in the 90s, and the idea of Shatner's fight style from Star Trek, even to this day, resonates. And, my entire life, I've been thinking about being able to fight like William Shatner in Star Trek. And to hear somebody just randomly throw out a reference like that was truly unexpected and delightful. And it always makes me smile.
Let me ask you guys a question, because I'm the only person on this podcast who's never actually truly met William Shatner. Now, you guys have all had real conversations with the man. You've seen the ups and the downs. Like, you've really just kind of been in it. Would it be wise to fight Shatner or unwise to fight Shatner?
Well, it would be extremely unwise.
He's always been a very athletic man. Obviously now he's in his 90s. I don't think anyone would.
You think you could take him now?
But yeah, he's a very athletic guy.
He's awful wily, though.
Yeah. I would think that William Shatner his punch would have packed a wallop.
Yeah.
I bet he could put you on the ground.
And he fights dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll fight like Finnegan.
Do a little wrestling and Ticonderoga.
He'll throw dust in your face.
They'll build a rudimentary lathe.
Wow. I don't know.
I think he would surprise you even now.
Yeah, I think so too.
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't mess around with
the
Shat.
gut punch coming, but it would happen, and you would feel it.
Yeah. No, I don't think you can mess around with the Shat, and I think that he'd find a way. Life will find a way. He'll kick your ass.
He'd change the conditions of the test.
Yeah. No, I would be really. When we were at a convention, it was Mike Tyson's booth was right next to Shatner, and I don't know if Mike Tyson could take him.
Maybe not.
It's Shatner, baby. It's Shatner. Don't mess with that man. So, but it's a great team.
I'm picturing Mike Tyson as the Gorn. I love you, Robin.
It's funny because we talked about this. There's another movie that references Shatner that came out around that time, which didn't make our list, which of course is True Romance, where Michael Rappaport talks about doing an audition for T.J. Hooker. But we felt the Fight Club moment is much more iconic. True Romance is great in so many ways, but it's not. It doesn't have the punch, if you will, of Fight Club.
And it's a T.J. Hooker reference. This isn't the Inglorious Hookspurts. The Inglorious Hooker Spurts.
That's right. That's so true. The Inglorious Hooker Spurts. Yeah, that's right.
Don't you have kids you need to be watching or something?
Something like that. I am the child I warned you of.
Okay, well, that was number 4 and Fight Club, which is, as we get down to our top 3 and, of course, our honorary mentions. But before we do that, we got to reveal number 3. And I look to you, Ashley Edward Miller, to
we're
tell us.
actually sharing these.
Well, I know, but that's why I was about to tee that up dramatically.
There's a bit of a tie.
You just want to reveal that fact.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
That's correct.
So the first of our number 3s, right? It's a wow. I mean, so many 3s.
3 is a magic number.
You boys, the 3 of you, all had to recuse yourself from this pick. because it means something to you personally, and I know that you don't want to be seen as making in-kind contributions to selling your own product. But at number 3,
we can't sell our own product. There's no way to buy it.
That's true. This is the movie that told fans with a life everywhere that there were other fans with a life somewhere out there.
Beyond Antares.
Beyond Antares. And I am referring to a little movie about a couple of guys named Mark and Rob and their quest to make a movie, to work with William Shatner and give him the opportunity to do a thing that would eventually lead to Priceline commercials that would make him richer than Jesus. And also strangely features a really terrific William Shatner imitation by some guy named DAREN DOCHTERMAN.
No,
I think that's how
character's name is
pronounces it.
Tiberius.
Yes, the movie is.
That's not me at all.
Completely ad-libbed by Darren on the spot,
it's
by the
not
way.
our Darren. It's not DAREN DOCHTERMAN.
No.
It's not that at all. The movie is Free Enterprise.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
You guys see that one?
Wow, that was dramatic.
Yeah.
Very dramatic.
I don't know. Like Mark said, you can't get it. So I haven't seen.
Look, the reality is when you're talking about movies that honor Star Trek, that use Star Trek as a way of examining popular culture, there's probably no movie that did it better. See, I don't care about recusing myself. Than Free Enterprise. Free Enterprise is the story of 2 Star Trek fans who meet their idol William Shatner and find out he's more, well, we'll say screwed up because we don't want it to be banned from Apple Podcasts, and they are.
Right.
It's a classic movie, deconstructs the Shatner myth in a way that's entertaining and comedic and fun. And it just so happens that 2 of the people on this podcast made the fucking thing. Oh, shit.
And one of them's in it.
There goes
Actually, 2 of them are in it.
Mark Rivera, paging Mark Rivera.
And that's how you introduce Free Enterprise.
You know what's really interesting about that, though? The thing about Free Enterprise is it was born out of friendship. And it wouldn't have happened had I not been a fan of Mark Altman's writing in Cinefantastique magazine. And Mark was a good writer. I lived for Mark's 100-page retrospective articles on the seasons of Free Enterprise. I mean, on the seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's where my head's at. And so Mark would write these really exhaustive. He would not only review every episode, but he would do exhaustive interviews with the cast and crew about each season.
This is before he was banned from the studio.
But they were really essential. If you were a Star Trek fan, you had to read these articles. I mean, it was a treasure trove of information, not just on the show itself, but how TV was made. It definitely was inspired, I think, by the Whitfield Star Trek book. I think, Mark, that's what you were going for. It was that kind of detail. And so I was a huge fan of Mark's, but I didn't know him. And I was working at a company called Full Moon, and Full Moon, I had seen this magazine called Sci-Fi Universe, and the reason I didn't buy the first issue because it had a pretty boring picture, to be honest, of the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, whatever. But
that wasn't me. That was not. I had nothing to do with that cover.
It was the second cover that was from the episode Parallels, where Jonathan Frakes is screaming in his universe where the Borg have defeated everyone. And this was the cover of Sci-Fi Universe, I think, 2. And I bought the magazine because I'm like, that's a clever, whoever put that on the cover is thinking. And
there's a first time for everything.
Sentient life form.
And then when I opened the magazine and saw it was, Chris Gore and Mark Altman's magazine, I was like, oh my God, they have their own magazine? And it was really exciting. And then I found out that Sci-Fi Universe was going to sponsor a Full Moon screening of the movie Oblivion. We've talked about it before. And I told my coworker, I said, oh, I've got to meet Mark Altman. I got to meet him. Because clearly, because he was involved with Sci-Fi Universe, that we were a little simpatico about how we thought about Star Trek. And that was really, if I had not seen Sci-Fi Universe and realized that Mark was involved with that magazine, we never would have met. I mean,
there would have been no Free Enterprise and no Lieutenant Yaw.
That's right.
It's like You've Got Mail, only different, or Sleepless in Seattle,
I think
only different.
the moral of that story is work begets work, and by following our Star Trek passions, whether it was Darren or me or Mark, they've led us places that I don't think we would have been able to go, or we would not have wound up had we not turned our fandom into some kind of a reasonable facsimile of a professional career.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing.
So what you're saying is that screening was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's good, Darren.
It was our density.
Yeah. And we were both inspired to do what we did by Darth Vader as well.
Yeah.
So what's so interesting is you talk about the influence of Star Trek, that Rob and I were actually being paid to write something completely unrelated to this. We were being paid to write a Jewish supernatural thriller called Day of Atonement.
Too late to be forgiven.
But it was somehow those eddies and currents brought us back to Star Trek in our procrastination. In our procrastination about the supernatural thriller, we ended up, using the fodder of our own lives as Star Trek fans for this movie. And so again, it's the influence of Star Trek that you allude to that, led to this thing materializing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, but Free Enterprise, obviously it's not just about a love of William Shatner. There's a lot of celebration of Star Trek throughout. Quotes like
the whole ethos of boldly going.
Of absolutely. And as a bonus, there's T.J. Hooker references, Rescue 911 references, and little did we know at the time, Priceline references. So it really packs quite a wallop when it comes to referencing Star Trek. There's also Planet of the Apes and Star Wars and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Well, the funny thing about it is that Dune had a reference sheet that they would give out during the first week of screening. You needed one for Free Enterprise for all the normies in the audience, both of them.
But we did print one in the soundtrack album. There's a thing. There's E-Bionics.
That was months later. After everyone, who saw it loved the movie.
They understand.
It was too late. It was already too late.
Because E-Bionics was a big thing at the time. So we did E-Bionics.
Yeah.
And
not your best one. Not your best one, but it's cute.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. And it's in the Free Enterprise soundtrack album, which is fantastic. And you know what sucks? There was a great version of the soundtrack album that had dialogue on it between the tracks, and for some reason that got the kibosh on it.
Yeah,
because nobody wanted I forget why, but it was kind of disappointing that didn't.
I'm sure it had to do with money.
That didn't happen, because it would have been cool to have some of those great dialogue on the soundtrack album.
But we do have the William Shatner secret track that's 3 minutes and 22 seconds at the end of there's 3 minutes and 22 seconds of silence, because that's Shatner's birthday, March 22nd. And then the secret track.
The secret track, which is no longer that secret because you just revealed it.
I just revealed it.
The secret is out.
And
recently, out of the bag.
Sadly, the Free Enterprise soundtrack was on Spotify up until the last 6 months.
Oh, is it not on Spotify anymore? It's on Apple Music too.
Yeah, so there you go. And the secret track is on there. You could listen to it.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's called, the secret track was actually called William Shatner's Self-Effacing Tale.
What's amazing is it's easier to get the soundtrack album than it is to get the actual movie.
Yeah.
Although the soundtrack album's pretty good.
It is good.
It is.
And Spring Aspers, who was our music supervisor, has become a hugely influential and important person in the music industry over at
Well, so is Maria Alante, who bought it for Network. And she's now I think she runs music for Sony.
Yeah,
and
they're probably
Spring
both there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Spring was great. Okay, before this becomes a Free Enterprise Love Fest, as we alluded to earlier, there's a lot of drama at number 3, because you're about to find out that there's kind of a DNA, there's a relationship between all these picks, which is why we feel that having a tie is okay. Mm-hmm. And Rob, why don't you tell us the second pick for number 3?
Well, It's our friend David Goodman, is it not?
Indeed it is. David X. Cohn.
David X. Cohn and David Goodman, who's one of my favorite people, former president of the WGA. David Goodman's an executive producer on Enterprise, or a writer on Enterprise, executive producer of The Orville. He wrote an episode of Futurama.
Sign it to Melvar. Melvar has 3 L's.
I think I've done enough conventions to know how to spell Melvar.
Say nerd.
Nerd.
I'm Slim Shady. Yes, I'm the real Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just imitating. So, won't the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up.
How can you do a spoken word version of a rap song?
He found a way.
That is one of, it is, it's so off the wall, but they got the whole cast came back, right?
Where no fan has gone before.
Except for one person who said, no way.
Yeah. And it is just an amazing episode of Futurama. I didn't know how much of until I later met David Goodman, and he wrote like the autobiography of James T. Kirk, which you can buy.
Jean-Luc Picard.
And Jean-Luc Picard.
Or Jean-Luc Pickard.
He's a complete Star Trek fanatic from back in the day. Like old school, like we were forged as a child, as a lifelong Star Trek fan. LaForged.
Oh, God.
And they just wrote this, they wrote this episode that is, it's just bizarre and off the wall, and it's just wonderful.
But also, it's so sweet because it really captures the feel of a classic Star Trek episode in that this mysterious cloud-like entity is a super fan that wants to create its own Star Trek fan film. Yeah. It's so inspired, and there's so much love there. Mm-hmm. But for Star Trek, obviously, David Goodman, his knowledge and passion for Star Trek approaches even our own. And he just did a miraculous job with this wonderful episode of Futurama. And it's so terrific. And when you think about some of the other stuff they were considering, like they had one that was like the Infinite Vulcan, which was going to be giant Kirk and Spock fighting each other. Thank God they went with this because it's smart. There are, more references than you can shake a stick at. And ultimately, it is very much a loving homage to the original Star Trek.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's so funny.
And Scotty.
No, Scotty. Scotty's does not appear. Yeah, it's Welshie. And it's so good. Obviously, they have the heads of the original cast. And they're all squabbling amongst themselves. And it's really fun. And I'm spoiling it. The Cloud's mother appears at the end and basically calls a halt to the whole deal. But it's so great. It's so great.
And Darren, how do you solve a problem like McCoy? Because Dee had passed away.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think they just had him not say anything.
Yep, he never talks.
Yeah,
it's the first time in a Star Trek that is true.
Well, he finally didn't have the last word.
There you go. Okay, so our second pick for number 3 was Futurama's Where No Fan Has Gone Before, but we're not done yet.
We're not done.
This is a 3-way tie. Darren, what's The Last of Us?
Well, no, it's not The Last of Us. That doesn't mention Star Trek at all. But the great thing about this next item is that it is as close to Star Trek as you can get without being Star Trek.
Asymptotic to Star Trek.
It is, of course, the great Galaxy Quest.
In the far reaches of the galaxy, a civilization is under siege.
We are all that is left.
They've searched the universe for a leader.
Stay tuned for scenes from next week's Galaxy Quest.
Never give up. Never surrender.
He will save us.
What they got.
Never give up.
and never surrender.
We're struggling TV actors.
You are our last hope.
Where's my limo?
Okie dokie.
And they're about to put on a command performance 8 million light years away.
We are actors, not astronauts.
You are our protectors.
That was a hell of a thing.
Galaxy Quest.
You're just gonna have to kill him.
We'll go for the mouth, the throat, his vulnerable spots.
It's a rock. It doesn't have any vulnerable spots.
Which is a look into Star Trek and behind the scenes of Star Trek that no one had ever done before. It is truly magical. It is hilarious. It really deals with fans in a very loving and honoring way. And it is so great. The performances are all top-notch. The characters in it are just slightly not Star Trek. And but it's great. You can tell exactly who the archetypes are, and it's brilliant. And the energy that is in it is so fresh and loving and touching. It's a great story as well. It's not only very funny, but it's a great sci-fi story too, and it has connections to an old New Voyages story where the crew of Star Trek get land in an actual science fiction story and deal with aliens, and it's so great. Galaxy Quest is, I think, one of the biggest profile homages to Star Trek that has ever been made.
Tangent alert. Okay, before we continue with this episode, I just want to say we got a lot of comments from people about our book episode, wondering why New Voyages was not on our top 10 list or honorary mentions. I want to say we did an entire episode on it.
Yeah.
And let's just say, see if you agree, there are two great stories in that book.
Right.
You know, A Voyage to a Small Planet Revisited.
Right.
And Mind Sifter, right? The whole book is not great. It's a great concept. It's a significant piece of Star Trek ephemera, but it's not by any means a great book in and of itself. What it represents is great.
Yep.
You are great. We are great. But that it is not entirely successful.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Discuss.
100%.
I do too.
It was a list of the best books, not the best stories.
Right. Yeah. A book is an entirety, and you need to include it as such.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you that book actually means a lot to me in a way, because I went to summer camp. My parents shipped me off to summer camp. I love summer camp. And it was the first year I went to YMCA's Camp Orkila on Orcas Island in the Pacific Northwest. And when I opened my suitcase that my mom packed, Star Trek New Voyages was the book in my suitcase that she packed for summer camp for me. And I read Mind Sifter and Visit to a Small Planet Revisited, or whatever it's called, at summer camp. And that book will always have a very special place in my heart. But I wish the other stories were as good as, I mean, Mind Sifter is a banger.
Yeah, it is.
That book may mean more to me than any other Star Trek book other than The Making of Star Trek. But that doesn't mean it should be and the Blueprints and the Technical Manual. But that doesn't mean it should be on our list.
Yeah.
I find that easily defensible, not to include New Voyages or the New Voyages on our list. So anyway, that was our tangent. Ashley, you want to add anything before we return to our program already in progress?
No, just that I just lovingly caressed my copy of Star Trek: The New Voyages and displayed it like a peacock displaying his feathers. Yeah.
But
as for Galaxy Quest, look, here's what I dig about that movie as an homage to Trek. It seamlessly manages to make an homage to the original series while also nodding at the next generation, while making that movie its own. Now, there are some fans who say, oh, it's the best Star Trek movie. Well, A, it's not a goddamn Star Trek movie, and B, it's not the best Star Trek movie. But other than that, they're totally right, because it is terrific. And the thing I most appreciated about it, and Darren, you mentioned this, was the way that the movie treats the fans and incorporates the fans. And in particular, the way that, you get to see how the actors see the fans, right? Their point of view on the people who come to meet them and to see them, and the way that on some level they kind of dismiss them, but some of them appreciate them.
Yeah.
But by the end, the audience in the movie theater watching the film get a point of view on the fans and understand, oh, these people are smart, they're resourceful, they're not necessarily cool, but they are capable. And they help solve the problem. That's the beauty of it. Like, that is the beauty of the third act of that film. It's not just that it has a great third act. It's that it sticks the landing in terms of how it talks about the relationship between Star Trek and the people who love Star Trek. And, in fact, the entire movie is not just a meditation on the tropes of Star Trek. It is a meditation on the love of Star Trek.
The Thermians.
Because it is the love of Star Trek.
The Thermians are
exactly,
fans.
The Thermians. Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting is it's the only thing on our list which doesn't specifically reference Star Trek.
Right.
It doesn't. There's not a single Star Trek reference in terms of a character but it's situational. It is a musing on the franchise and the fandom. It's clearly based on Star Trek, but it's not Star Trek, which is different than everything else on our list.
Yep.
But it's totally earned. And it's funny because it's been called by people, and we don't agree with this, the best Star Trek movie ever made, which it's not. But also a lot of the cast loves Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Because they see a lot of themselves and their fans in the movie. And we've had this conversation both on stage and off with the with a lot of the cast, and Galaxy Quest resonates for a variety of reasons. So that was our tie for number 3: Free Enterprise, Futurama, when no fan has gone before, and Galaxy Quest, which brings us to number 2, Robert Meyer Burnett. Now we're getting into the big. We're boldly going. Tell us where we land with our number 2 top 10 best pop culture references to Star Trek.
Well, this is one of my favorite Star Trek pop culture references, Star Trek events of all time, and it involves the President of the United States. Now, back in the mid-'70s, Star Trek had gone into strip syndication in 1972. The first Star Trek convention happened in 72, and Star Trek fandom had become a big thing. And college students were watching Star Trek, kids were watching Star Trek, adults were watching Star Trek. Now, arguably, Star Trek had more of an audience than it had ever had. And at the same time, the Apollo program had ended. Skylab was one of our last big space missions, and we were building the space shuttles. And the very first space shuttle that was going to roll out off the assembly line was the Constitution, named after the Constitution, the United States Constitution. But oh no, a bunch of industrious Star Trek fans started a massive letter writing campaign to not call the first space shuttle the Constitution, which is interesting. They wanted it called the Enterprise, which was a Constitution-class starship, heavy cruiser. But what was really interesting about all this, so Star Trek fans were heard. And President Gerald Ford, without ever mentioning Star Trek fans or this write-in letter campaign, decided he told NASA officials, he made a decree, he made a presidential order basically that said, we're changing the name of the Constitution to Enterprise. And he claimed it was because he was partial to the name.
NASA's reusable shuttle orbiter, part of a new, less expensive space transportation system. A spaceship that will put our country in the Earth orbit freight business. This is Orbiter 101 as it rolled out of the hangar in Palmdale, California. It has been named the Enterprise.
He never said anything about Star Trek or Star Trek fans.
And imagine he still lost the election to Carter.
But the president demanded the Constitution be changed to the Enterprise. But here's what I've always thought. This has always personally bummed me out. So the first shuttle that came off the assembly line at first was never built to go into space.
Right.
It was only built to perform test flights in the atmosphere. It did not have engines.
Yeah.
And it did not have a functional heat shield.
It was a lander.
It was a lander. And they were doing it to do tests. Now, what the plan was that they were going to refit the Enterprise afterwards.
And you won't know
entirely
as well as I do.
They were
you don't know her
make
12th as well as Gerald Ford.
And they were going to make it capable for space flight and make it the second shuttle to fly. But the second shuttle built was the Columbia. And what happened is while they were constructing the Columbia, they realized that there were design changes they wanted to make. So they made substantial changes to the fuselage and the wings in its construction. And then they realized it would be too expensive to refit the Enterprise to make her spaceworthy. So the Space Shuttle Enterprise, while it was the very first space shuttle, it never made it to space.
She's had her day, Jim.
But it was a great example of fandom coming together and affect real change all the way up to the President of the United States.
It isn't quite clear.
I've only seen her one time. It was 2011, maybe. I don't know, man. Time is like the fire in which we burn, so screw it. But I was at the Javits Center, which is that's the convention center in New York, right?
Yeah.
And I was there for a book convention promoting the book that I had written with Zach, Colin Fisher, which you can still buy. And the Enterprise was being towed on a barge past the Javits Center. And I was in like the area, like where everybody was eating. And literally, it was like Star Trek 3. Everybody stood up and they watched as the Enterprise went by. So it was like a Star Trek reference inside of a Star Trek reference. And it was pretty special.
Inside of a Lawrence of Arabia reference.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. It's
unclear somewhere.
It's unclear who in the Ford administration was the little bird that suggested this to the president. But I'd love to
Admiral
find
Morrow.
out. Huh?
Admiral Morrow.
No. I'd love to find out the actual lineage of how that happened, because I'm sure it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Well, that killed that discussion. Sorry.
No, I think it's part of our Trekication, our Trek archaeology. We now have to find this person. We have to track them down and find. Maybe James Fanson knows who it was in the Ford administration that convinced Jerry to rename the Constitution the Enterprise.
By the way, boys, I have indeed found my picture of Space Doc watching the Enterprise.
Cool.
I'll send it along.
We can put that up on our public.
Well, maybe they just felt
outlets.
her day was over.
Well,
that's when
it wasn't 20 years old.
Yeah,
I know it wasn't 20 years old. That's right, 20 years old. I mean, freaking aircraft carriers have been around twice that long.
Yeah.
It's like, but
you get refit.
Oh, we're gonna put the Enterprise. She's 20 years old.
But, even that's wrong, because she was way older than that, because she was the same ship that Captain Pike was on. And that was 13 years before the menagerie.
Couldn't even get that right.
Yeah, give me a break.
Yeah, but at least they named a space shuttle after Discovery, so that's good.
Right.
No? Did they not? Was that not named?
That was the Discovery from 2001.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Enough.
Man, the space shuttle, it really did capture your imagination, though, didn't it? a spaceship that could go into space and then land like a conventional aircraft.
And yet, arguably, this may be a topic for another day. It was the worst mistake NASA's ever made.
You've talked about that before.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Terrible mistake.
Which is interesting, because some would say that Moonraker was the worst mistake that Cubby Broccoli ever made.
What's interesting is the Moonraker space shuttle went into space way before our space shuttle actually made it into space.
It beat the Enterprise.
Which is so crazy, because it didn't go into space. Our first space shuttle didn't go into space until 81.
Yeah.
But Moonraker went into space.
So our number one pick, Moonraker, is the greatest Star Trek reference of all time.
Complete with ray guns.
You know, I don't want to go on another tear about how much I love Moonraker, even though it's awful.
I love it.
But speaking of awful, you know who died this week when we're recording this? Ryan O'Neal, star of Tough Guys Don't Dance.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Oh,
God.
Oh, man.
Now, if you have not seen Tough Guys Don't Dance, I think Vinegar Syndrome put it out on Blu-ray. You owe it to yourself to see that movie in memory of the late, great Ryan O'Neal.
And Norman Mailer.
It is a thing of horror.
Do you?
But
horror.
What? No. I own it. Oh,
I mean, no. It's all good.
There's special features on that disc. Whoever dreamed?
It's a major prize.
In a world in which there were behind the scenes making of features on Tough Guys Don't Dance.
Well, there was once something called home entertainment.
Yeah, you know, Angelo Badalamenti did the score to that. But, you know, I was shocked. We watched, I'd never seen Christmas Vacation. We watched it last night. Angelo Badalamenti did the score to Christmas Vacation.
Wow.
That was weird.
National Lampoon's Christmas? I didn't know that.
I did not know it either. That's a terrible movie, by the way.
It is.
It's a terrible
I can't believe
really
people love it so much.
No,
I don't understand how people love it. It's terrible. I've never seen it.
The first Vacation is a classic.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I just don't understand. I don't understand.
Well, you know what is great about Christmas Vacation? Randy Quaid. Every time I turn on the microwave, I piss myself and forget my name. I mean, that was worth the price of admission.
Yeah, but that wasn't in the script.
Yeah, so there you go. So Randy Quaid.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Okay. Right. That was our number 2 pick for the greatest pop culture Star Trek references of all time. Before we reveal our number 1 pick, though, as is tradition here on the holiday specials, we ask everyone for their honorary mentions, which are purely an individualistic choice rather than a consensus pick. So we're going to start with Robert Meyer Burnett, his honorary mention for the top 10 best pop culture Star Trek references ever.
Now, I don't know how many people know this, and I don't know. Star Trek isn't necessarily referenced, but Leonard Nimoy is clearly playing Mr. Spock in what I'm about to tell you.
Oh, my God. You're not going to go there.
Back
I'm very curious.
in the 1970s, they introduced introduced our beloved Laserdisc player.
Yep.
Magnavovision Laserdiscs.
Time. The truest test of any product is how it performs over time. Now, this. Magnavox Star System Color Television. Designed for the highest reliability in Magnavox history. Design concepts, technology, advanced manufacturing systems for a picture as reliable as it is bright and clear. Magnavox. The brightest ideas in the world are here today.
And the first time we ever saw one publicly was actually in the movie Airport 77. You saw lasers. It was a Universal film. Magnavox and Universal had kind of teamed up. They made just an introductory video that literally has like one of the providers from Gamers of Triskelion appears before a TV, and Nimoy's dressed all in white. He's got a stash, but he's talking like Spock, and he raises his eyebrow like Spock, and he's talking to this alien rock that's in someone's den. Why? I don't know. You can find this again. You can find this video on YouTube. Leonard Nimoy demonstrates the Magnavovision Laserdisc player, and he takes us through with the help of this a sentient alien rock that's talking to him with weird, beep, 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 and then there's bizarre 70s synth music. And Leonard
Your neck
Nimoy,
was too expensive. They couldn't use them.
I mean, it's like a 10-minute video.
Yeah.
Where Leonard Nimoy is as Spock. He doesn't say Spock, but he's clearly playing Spock. He's channeling Spock, and he introduces the Laserdisc. Now, this had to have been circa 77, I would imagine, because that's when Airport 77 came out. And, I saw the Laserdisc player in 78 when I was a kid. I got one finally in 85. I got a combi player. And we were Laserdisc fanatics. Another part of Free Enterprise is our Laserdisc obsession. So
we hated that movie because we were idiots.
Yeah,
we're not going to give DVD their due. We're going to keep Laserdiscs.
Yeah. And the first time I ever saw this video was actually in a department store in downtown Seattle, where Leonard Nimoy, this video was playing on a Laserdisc player on a TV that was showing people what Laserdiscs were. And in my mind, it was the coolest thing I had ever seen, because this predated consumer. I saw this in 70. I mean, there were people that had VCRs at this time, but they were really expensive. 3/4 inch VHS and Beta were just beginning to make their way, but Laserdisc was concurrent. People forget it was concurrent to that. And Leonard Nimoy introducing Magnavision Laserdisc.
Wow, that's so funny. I was pretty sure, Rob, that you were about to say Leonard Nimoy in the Bangles Going Down to Liverpool video. So I thought you were implying that he played Spock in that, as though that car, he was not a chauffeur, but he was like driving the Galileo 7 and the Bangles were in it. It's getting hot in here. But that's what I thought you were going with when you said, Leonard Nimoy playing Spock. But the Magnavox commercial is good. He did a bunch of commercials like that, but Magnavox loved him because, of course, he later would do the voiceover for all the Odyssey 2 commercials.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good pick, Rob. It was the future.
They can play the clip on the show.
I have to say, Bill and Leonard did a lot of great TV commercials in the 70s and 80s.
Yes, they did.
A lot.
Promise.
Because who could forget the Promise margarine commercials that Bill did? And then he did a bunch of, not Pathmark because that was James Caron, but he did a lot of supermarket commercials as well.
Right.
And
what was the name of that supermarket? It was Canadian. It was Canadian.
Clearly it didn't hit the mark because we don't remember.
Well,
but
that's what happened.
But Leonard was all over the
by
airway.
the star.
And it died because we
He did the VIC-20 too, didn't he?
Yep. Commodore.
Yeah. Commodore. They should have had William Wyndham do that one.
Commodore Wesley.
Okay. That was a great pick. Now that brings us to the honorary mention for Ashley Edward Miller.
I have 3 words for you boys. Pigs in space. It's a recurring segment on The Muppet Show. They appear 32 times, sending up everything from Star Trek to Lost in Space to Planet of the Apes, but primarily Star Trek, because the name of the ship was the starship Swine Trek. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Do the math.
And now, Pigs in Space! Starring the salubrious Captain Link Hogthrob, the provocative first mate, Miss Piggy, and the mythical Dr. Strangeborg. When last we left the spaceship Swine Trek, it was drifting aimlessly in space due to the loss of power in the steering mechanism.
It was revived on the Muppets Tonight as Pigs in Space, Deep Dish 9. And what a number one, what a loving homage to our favorite show. Number 2, how could a podcast that features any of us not make a reference to the Muppets if we possibly could? Because if you want to know what Muppet Star Trek looks like, well, the Muppets did it.
Yeah, starring Link Heartthrob.
Oh my gosh. I love those Pigs in Space. I would just wait for them to come on the Muppet Show. I just, it's like, oh yeah, I hope they do have a pig. It wasn't every week. So I was always like, I hope they have Pigs in Space. And the best one was when they had Mark Hamill on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was pretty funny.
They
had Mark
awesome.
Hamill and Luke Skywalker.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, that's not a Star Trek reference, but, it was pretty good. It had Star in the title.
It's Star Trek adjacent.
Yeah, it's Star Trek adjacent. Yeah, you a fan of Pigs in Space, Rob, or are you kosher?
No. I don't dig on swine, man. No, I love bacon. Bacon tastes good. Pork chops taste good.
Oh, this is such a sin.
Oh, my gosh.
Pork chops and applesauce.
Yeah.
It's a little Brady Bunch reference.
Paramount reference.
That's some pig. Oh, wait, that was Charlotte's Web.
Eddie Milkus. He is the 6 degrees. He's the Kevin Bacon that connects Star Trek to the Brady Bunch.
That's right. Crazy. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's a great pick. Pigs in Space from The Muppet Show from Ashley Edward Miller. That brings us now to Darren for his honorary mention.
My honorary mention, I have searched high and low for years and years. I have never been able to find it. But it's ingrained in my memory so vividly that I have never forgotten it. In around 1974, there was probably a local commercial on New York TV. I remember seeing it on Wonderama on Saturday morning. And it was a commercial for White Castle. In this commercial, we see a space station with the White Castle sign on it, and it is approached by the USS Enterprise, which was no doubt a AMT model. But they say, we'd like an order for 500 White Castles, please, to go. And they orbit around the White Castle space station, and then they're off. And it was this commercial that was on for several months. I remember seeing it many times, and I have never seen it again. And I know I didn't just imagine it.
I was just going to ask you, are you sure you didn't imagine it?
It was real.
I never saw that commercial.
It's real, and I know it.
But obviously it made a big impression on me.
Should I call Scott Mance and find out if he remembers watching it?
I bet you Scott Mance remembers.
Let's see. Let's call him right now.
Well,
Scott Mance remembers.
Especially if it aired during one of the repeats of Metamorphosis.
I'm putting it on speaker. Let's see here. Scott Mance.
I don't know if this is going to work very well. While you're dialing him, I want to also mention another appearance of the AMT Enterprise model. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, both the Enterprise and the Klingon ship appear in Roy Neary's family room, hanging there as he destroys the family room. You see it flung to one side and dangling by fishing line. But it's a wonderful thing to see Star Trek in these.
Hey, Scott Mance, we're recording an episode of the TREKSPERTS as we speak, and we're wondering if you remember in the tri-state area a Star Trek White Castle commercial. It's very important. If you can call me back during the next 10 minutes while we're doing the podcast, we'd like to know. I know this has nothing to do with the companion or Metamorphosis, but you might have the answer to this vexing question. We're only going to be on the air for another 10 minutes, so give us a call or forever hold your peace. But we figured you would know because you are you have great Trek expertise, great Trek enthusiasm. Okay, thanks, Scott Mance.
Operators are standing by.
It's you nearly called him a Trekspert, but he's not. He's not.
I held back.
You held back.
The new shield's held. I hit the brakes.
He's a dilettante. Oh well, no.
Well, he's.
I would love to see his commercial. If anyone has his commercial, please send it to trekspertsplus@gmail.com because we want to see it.
We have to know.
Show us
or recreate it.
I know it was real. I know it was real.
I knew it was real.
Scott will back me up because he's the $6 million Mance.
Well, we'll find out. If anybody knows, well, I don't know about that. But anyway, we'll find out. We'll find out because somebody's listening to this podcast. Someone hopefully
out there in the dark listening to the podcast.
What's your honorary mention, Mark?
Yeah, Mark.
Well, my honorary mention, it's funny. I'm having a tough time because my initial thought was the amusing and living color skit, The Wrath of Farrakhan.
What do you want? I've come to warn your crew. Warn your crew of their enslavement. Aboard this vessel.
That's poppycock. These people are perfectly free to do anything they like.
It is that same lie that kept Elvis the king. that made that poor child, LaToya Jackson, think she could sing. It is that same lie that's got white boys rapping and the fat boys acting.
Hey, mister, you can't come in here and talk to me like that.
But I couldn't go with that. Then I was thinking, Zoolander has a very funny reference to Star Trek in that Will Ferrell is called the Magatu, but that's really the only, it's like you either get it or you don't. So I'm not going to go like, oh, okay, Ben Stiller's a Star Trek fan. He calls Will Ferrell Magatu. Okay, we get it. That's funny, but it's not enough to earn an honorary mention. So my honorary mention is going to be the DirecTV commercial that came out contemporaneous with Star Trek VI, in which Shatner is on the bridge of the Enterprise, and he gets DirecTV on the main viewer, and promotes DirecTV.
Shall we raise our shields, Captain?
At ease, Mr. Chekhov. Again with the shields. I wish he'd just relax and enjoy the amazing picture clarity of the DirecTV HD we just hooked up. With what Starfleet just ponied up for this big screen TV, settling for cable would be illogical. What? I can't use that line?
For picture quality that beats cable, you've got to get DirecTV.
But what they actually did with it wasn't contemporaneous with Star Trek VI. They used Star Trek VI, and they actually de-aged Shatner. This is one of those early, like, Grand Moff Tarkin things where they did a younger Shatner for this DirecTV commercial. You remember that DirecTV commercial with Shatner?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
It at all.
You don't remember it?
I think that part of my brain was covered up by the White Castle commercial.
Apparently, but this is real. This was
There's
a very
only so
popular
much room in
commercial
there.
and they had DirecTV on the main viewer, and it was Star Trek VI, but they actually filmed new stuff, and then they de-aged Shatner to match the Star Trek VI footage.
Huh.
But they had him in the in the Monster Maroon, as people call them.
Right.
And I don't call them that. I just say Nick Meyer's cool second version of Bob Fletcher's uniforms. I don't know why people call it Monster Maroon, so I'm not going to call it that. But I'm Bob Fletcher's second attempt, which was entirely successful. And
actually, it's my first attempt.
Ooh.
But my pick is the DirecTV commercial with Bill Shatner. I said on the Star Trek VI bridge. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's lovely. Hopefully,
that's a good pick.
Hopefully we'll be able to find it and so that we can see it, because I would like to see that.
Okay. Well, that I'm sure is available. That I'm sure we can track down our producer. I'm making a list along with the Faltar Pan Taco Bell commercial.
Right.
I'm making a list to find the DirecTV commercial. And I think they'll have more luck with that.
You're paying. Share it with me. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no commercial with
I'm going
Lawrence
for something
Luckenbill.
there. I'll work.
Was there any fast food tie-in for Star Trek V? I don't think so. It was just a marshmallow from Kraft.
Yes. Yeah, they didn't have a fast food tie-in to 5.
Yeah.
Because there were
That's
no
too bad.
There were no glasses.
Because nobody could get out of the theater. They were seat belted into
They were seat belted in.
So
they couldn't get out of their seat belts. That's
right.
right. That's right. Because that's why the theaters are installing seat belts in summer. Yeah, they're trying to get them from going to Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade instead. Okay. Well, those are the honorary mentions. All great picks, guys. Really great picks. We'll find out if this White Castle is a real commercial or a figment of Darren's imagination. But either way, it sounds great. Which brings us to our number one pick for the top 10 best pop culture Star Trek references. And to do the honors is none other than America's sweetheart, Daren Dochterman. Well,
thanks for that lovely introduction, Mark. The number one on our list, people are going to say that, how dare you forget the famous John Belushi Star Trek skit on Saturday Night Live? We love that, but it is not on our list for a bunch of reasons, mostly because there's very few people around who even remember it.
No, that's not why.
As opposed to the MCI commercial.
Remember. This list is not to appease people who remember things. It's for the best. We tell them what to remember. It's not about remember. It's just not like at the time. It's great. Like, oh my God, they're doing a Star Trek skit, right? That was a big deal. But it's not that great a skit.
Well, we'll remember it for you wholesale. In the meantime,
not as memorable as what you're about to talk about.
In the meantime, one of the arguably one of the greatest writers to come out of Saturday Night Live was a guy named Robert Smigel. You may know him as the insult comic dog, and Triumph, yeah.
Also, not to be confused with Robert Smigel.
No, that's Smigel. That's yeah.
Smigel,
and he's precious. But the most famous skit that he ever wrote was when William Shatner was the host of Saturday Night Live, and the first skit that came up, Shatner actually apologized for during the monologue. He says, "You guys are going to see something that you may not like, but bear with us because it's all in fun." What happened next was perhaps one of the greatest Star Trek mentions in Saturday Night Live history.
You know, before I answer any more questions, there's something I wanted to say. Having received all your letters over the years, and I've spoken to many of you, and some of you have traveled, hundreds of miles to be here, I'd just like to say, get a life, will you, people? I mean, for crying out loud, it's just a TV show. I mean, look at you. Look at the way you're dressed. You've turned an enjoyable little job that I did as a lark for a few years into a colossal waste of time. I mean, how old are you people? What have you done with yourselves? You must be almost 30. Have you ever kissed a girl? I didn't think so. There's a whole world out there. When I was your age, I didn't watch television. I lived. So move out of your parents' basement and get your own apartments and grow the hell up. I mean, it's just a TV show, damn it. It's just a TV show.
Are you saying then that we should pay more attention to the movies?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Hey, you guys are the lamest bunch. I mean, I've never seen it. I can't believe these people. I mean, I really can't understand what's going on here.
That was William Shatner, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to remind you, Trekkers, that we have some fine refreshments from all over the galaxy. Coke, Diet Coke, Bubble Up, the Orange, I believe.
Of course, that speech was a recreation of the evil Captain Kirk from episode 37. The name, the enemy within. You know? Yeah. So thank you, and live long and prosperous. So everybody, set your faces on stun, because this convention's ahead. Warp Factor 9. All right. Warp Factor 9.
Where William Shatner is at a Star Trek convention, and he urges fans to get a life while insulting them and belittling their let's
Thank
just
God,
say
I thought you were going to say Airplane 2.
Oh, yeah, no airplane.
Airplane.
It's a wonderful skit, and it really shows, first of all, a deep love for Star Trek and a deep understanding of what is funny about Star Trek fandom and what some people may need to work on to increase their adulthood. In love of something like this. Shatner really is hilarious. He basically says, honestly, you people, you've taken this job I did as a lark and turned it into a tremendous waste of time. It's so well written, and near the end, Shatner is forced to say, well, I was playing the evil Captain Kirk from The Enemy Within, and it's so well done, and Shatner has a great time with it, and he wears the weirdest sweater I've ever seen. But
totally,
it's so great.
The head of the convention is Phil Hartman, who's terrific. Again, the late Phil Hartman, who was just always so wonderful and so funny. Such a loss. But
and And
It's a
remember,
great
in the
skit.
dealer's room, you want to visit Pamela Denberg-Doohan, Scotty's ex-wife, who says things weren't at all great with everyone's favorite engineer as she signs her book, Beam Me Out of Here.
It's so
Dude,
smart.
my favorite
because-
line is that mayor had a foal.
Yeah, it's so good.
And
because it really, a lot of people parody Star Trek without really getting it. This betrays a fundamental understanding of Star Trek, its fans, its fandom, the minutia. It gets it. It gets it. And it's so great. And just the fact that Shatner was so worried about, how people would take it, that he'd lose convention gigs, like that he apologized and then subsequently apologized and then named a book after it.
Yeah.
But is it hits really close to home in a beautiful way. And we've all been there. I mean, one of the things that really annoys me, people say, oh, you guys are such Treksperts, huh?
Yeah.
What's, it was the equivalent of that, what's the Captain Kirk safe number? It's like they ask you the most esoteric piece of Star Trek trivia. And we're like, what? Who fucking cares? We're experts about the show, the history of the show, not about
the minutia.
Bullshit. Yeah, about minutia. So you're not really Treksperts is what you're saying. You don't know this. I know this. I love that idea. It's like, I know something you don't know. Because
we honor the alien
We're not
race.
Rafe Needleman.
We honor the alien race, the Minusians, who traveled through space.
It so captures the experience of being at a convention because you have people who are really passionate fans who are just loving, who are great, and then you got some real weirdos and
John Lovitz wearing bad Vulcan ears. And Shatner pointing at him and said, you're almost 30. Have you ever kissed a girl? And then he looks down dejectedly. It's so funny.
I never loved that John Lovitz as much as I love him these days.
Oh no, he's great. He's great.
He's been a passionate advocate for Israel. He's wonderful.
Sir.
I love that John Lovitz. He takes no shit. He's
except when it's from Shatner.
Except when it's from Shatner. He's really
Shatner's
good.
got his number.
Everyone's great in that skit.
Yeah.
That skit is so terrific. And I think that's what we're talking about. I think the Elliot Gould, John Belushi skit is wonderful. There's no question it's wonderful. But it was the first time.
It doesn't ring true.
It doesn't ring true. Well, whereas Get a Life I just think it endures so much more. Everyone talks about it. Everyone knows what you mean when you say get a life.
Yeah.
That whole thing, get a life. And Shatner's so great in it. The other one's an imitation. It's John Belushi doing an over-the-top imitation.
Yeah.
Whereas,
what I think is so amazing about the Get a Life sketch is, yes, it's wantonly making fun of Star Trek fans. But at the same time, as Ashley pointed out, it was Kevin Nealon who said, did that mare have a foal? Or did that foal?
Yeah.
And it shows at that moment, that's a pretty smart thing to say.
Yeah.
It's not some geeky, do you know your serial number from this episode? It's not like that. He's showing he does.
An in-depth knowledge of William Shatner.
Yes, totally.
And a respectful knowledge of his own, the man's concerns and the man's interests in horses. And even though Dana Carvey looking down is brutal and it's amazing.
Lovitz.
Lovitz. I say Dana Carvey. Yes, Lovitz looking down is brutal. But isn't Dana Carvey in it? Am I just wrong? He's not.
I don't think
remember.
so.
Yeah, maybe it's just Lovitz and Nealon. But it's so cutting. But at the same time, it could have gone for the jugular, but it still comes off as even Star Trek fans love that. And the fact that we all love that after that presentation was pretty spectacular.
We're all big enough to take a few insults. And of course, we've been to conventions like that. I mean, Rob and I talk about this. This was many years ago. We got invited to a convention in Visalia. We were the special guests. And we walk into a room and suddenly these batlets block our way. And these Klingons are like, no entry except to members of the High Command or whatever the fuck they said. And Rob and I just pushed these styrofoam things away. So go away. Go, stop with the nonsense. It's like
you should have done a Jedi gesture.
A Jedi mind trick, exactly. Yes, right. Thou shalt not pass.
Oh.
But it was It's so ridiculous. And it captures.
And a man in my position can't afford to be made to look ridiculous.
And at the end of the day, what's more ridiculous than a bunch of idiots doing a Star Trek podcast for 5 years?
Yeah.
So we're not innocent here.
We know,
we're
Doctor.
just as guilty.
We know.
Yeah,
and then,
I mean,
to refer back to Free Enterprise, when you and I were writing that, we went and looked at all of his comedy appearances, the ones we could get, like on Fridays, and Shatner had a tendency he likes to go over the top. He likes his broad humor, but in that, he's brought it down.
100%.
And that was, I think, when we were making Free Enterprise, that performance was our touchstone.
You saw that he could do it.
Yeah, and that was my only real direction to Shatner during the whole thing in terms of his character. I said, Bill, I want people to wonder whether or not you're completely serious or completely insane.
Right.
And you have to, if you're too insane, it's not going to work. And if you're too serious, it's not going to work. There's got to be. And he was like, yes, I understand.
It's that old Nick Myers story about saying fire in Star Trek 2, where, fire. And then he, by the fifth take, he's like exhausted. He tosses it off because he's just annoyed. Fire. And it's perfect, or Here It Comes was fire was Here It Comes.
Coming through now.
Here It Comes. It was Here It Comes now.
Yeah, because originally he was going, here it comes.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And here it comes.
Yeah.
Here it comes. And it's like, finally, here it comes now.
Here it
And it's just so perfect. And
his facial expression when he says it makes it too.
Yeah.
Totally. Because he's annoyed with Nick Meyer. He's done, he doesn't like to do multiple takes, as Rob knows. And it was, it's really interesting. And he's so good in that. And that was kind of the way we lured him in. We baited him because we did it in our, what he calls the tear-stained letter. We never mentioned Star Trek. We talked about his comic chops and how much we admired them in things like the Saturday Night Live skit and in Fridays and even, dare I say it, in Airplane 2, the sequel. We never mentioned Star Trek. We just mentioned comedic things he did. And I think that was very exciting for him because at the time he hadn't done comedy. He hadn't done The Big Giant Head in
Third Rock from
the Sun. He hadn't done Boston Legal. He hadn't done any of these comedy things that he's renowned for. Free Enterprise was the beginning of him turning a page into comedy. And so it was a big risk on our part to cast him in a comedy. But risk is our business.
But even in Airplane 2, he was still doing a riff on Kirk.
Yeah.
The commander of
yes, totally.
So, no, it was interesting. And I think that Get a Life sketch, the fact that even today, everyone knows what that is.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What's amazing to me is given how good Bill was in that Saturday Night Live. And it's not just Get a Life. It's in the Restaurant Enterprise. And it's in the Ollie North sketch. And it's in all that he was never, and maybe he was asked back, but he never did Saturday Night Live again.
Right.
To me, he should be in the Five Timers Club. He's brilliant on that show.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that he never did a Saturday Night Live again. And I don't know if that was his choice or Lord Michaels or what, but I mean, he's just great.
Even though it wasn't, I've got to throw out another, you just reminded me of this, and I can't believe we've got to bring up his appearance at the MTV Movie Awards.
Oh my God, Rob, how did we not have that?
Who are you? Who are you really? What do you mean? I'm the host of the hit series Rescue 911. I thought that was Robert Stack. Robert Stack, are you insane? Listen, Hooker, what I've done will be puzzled over and studied and followed forever. People will have conventions, posters, books, CD-ROMs. Sit back, you freak, Messiah, you're a movie of the week. Your T-shirts. T-shirts? That'd be great. Why didn't I think of that? We're here. This is it. I give the commands on this vessel. Helm, hard a port.
Okay.
I don't know.
Wow. Where does this go now? We have to rethink this whole list.
It's another honorable mention.
I don't know about that. This belongs on the list.
I mean, he does the end scene of Seven, and he plays all the parts. He plays Spacey as John Doe. He plays Brad Pitt as Mills, and he plays Somerset, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
And all three.
Darren, do we make this a tie for number one, or is this an honorary mention?
I think this is a special award. This is a
special award because he combined
prize.
Star Trek, Rescue 911, and T.J. Hooker.
Yeah.
So it transcends just being Star Trek.
It's transcendent.
It's like a turducken of Star Trek references.
He goes beyond the rim of the starlight. He gets it all. He hits it all. So I think this is a special award. I think that's right. This is a lifetime achievement. It's a Shatnerific because it's Star Trek, it's Rescue 911, and it's T.J. Hooker.
And it
it's
also makes
amazing.
him relevant for the young generation, too, which is something Shatner's been able to transcend decade after decade.
Darren, can you explain, because we're talking about it as though people know what we're talking about. Darren, can you explain what the MTV Movie Awards sketch that Shatner was part of for the audience in case they haven't seen it and have no idea what we're talking about?
Well, the MTV Movie Awards would always have a recreated scene from a film of that year. And I think it also came from the Oscars doing skits with Billy Crystal and putting Billy Crystal in the movies of that year. But this year they did basically the last act of Seven, and they reshot it exactly. I don't know if it was actually using footage from the film. I think it was. And putting Shatner in it, in all of the roles again. But it's the thought of him doing all the roles is ludicrous. It's the height of hubris, but he thought he could do it. And it's magical because he, you don't expect him to be so different in all of these roles, and they add him so deftly that it's like watching the actual movie. And he has such a great time with it and enjoys every minute of it. And it's really something to watch. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Look it up.
It's three
It's
distinct
magical.
performances.
Yeah.
He's channeling Kirk, and then one he's T.J. Hooker, and then he's also playing the host of 911. And it is just a brilliant satire of Seven.
Yeah.
And he is so good in it. That was the other thing. I think this was pre-Free Enterprise, wasn't it, Rob? Or was it after? I don't remember.
I think it was,
because I know that you and I
Fight
were
Club
very...
came out in 99. We'd already made it.
Yeah,
We'd already
okay,
made
so, okay.
Well, no, Seven.
No, not Fight Club, Seven.
Oh, yes.
Seven was 94.
7's 95.
Yeah, so this was before Free Enterprise. So I think we pointed to his MTV as another comedic tour de force.
Right.
Which it was. So if you haven't seen it, this is a gem. This is a true gem. And it gets our special bonus award for the greatest Star Trek pop culture reference ever.
Of our top 10,
what a
it's
list.
actually 15.
Our top 15. 15!
Yeah, I know. We really,
commandments.
Mr. Sulu indulged himself in this episode because we really went
my.
above and beyond. But there was so much good stuff to squeeze in this episode because we really had a lot to do. And of course, that includes at number 10, the Wonder Years homage to Spock's brain. Number 9, the Love Boat Enterprise from Saturday Night Live. 8 was a tie between the 8 was British Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial. 7 was a tie between the MCI Friends and Family commercial and the British Power commercial. At 6, it was I Need More Power from Crimson Tide. Number 5, I'm Friends with Scotty, the Ben Stiller Show. Number 4, Fight Club, Can You Beat Up William Shatner? Number 3, a three-way tie between Free Enterprise, Futurama, Where No Fan Has Gone Before, and Galaxy Quest. Number 2, the Space Shuttle Enterprise. And at number 1, it was Get a Life from Saturday Night Live with a special Lifetime Achievement Award to Bill Shatner for combining the Captain James T. Kirk, T.J. Hooker, and the Rescue 911 host in the brilliant tour de force that was the MTV Movie Awards tribute to Seven. What a show.
My goodness. It's
Betsy.
It's not quite 4 hours, but I think you get 4 hours of energy in it.
You get 4 hours of entertainment, we hope. Or not. I don't
Hours
know.
would seem like days.
Oh, my.
Well, we hope you'll join us next Thursday for an all-new holiday special as well. And of course, if you think we missed something or disagree, you can reach out to us in Inglorious Trek or Inglorious Treksperts on all your favorite social channels. We'll be standing by for that. And you can also email us at trekspertsplus@gmail.com. And of course, if our weekly broadcasts are not enough for you, well, Rob Meyer Burnett is there to help you because he's there daily at the Burnettwork. So go to YouTube and subscribe today to Robservations and the many other fine shows on the Rob Meyer Burnett network.
Burnettwork.
The Burnettwork, indeed. So this is all good. And what else? I think that about does it, doesn't it? Because we got to record another one of these soon.
Yeah.
It never stops. It's like the doomsday machine. It's relentless.
If it is indeed life from lifelessness, we need to return to this place.
Never-ending holiday special.
Well, Rob, thanks for being with us again.
This was a lot of fun, this one. I mean, they're
we
all
love
fun.
having you share our insights.
The other were dirges, but
this was something special. Well, I think the merchandising one was so meaningful and emotional that it was nice to do something a little more silly this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silly is right.
Yeah. And of course, we'll be back. We got some really special ways to close out the holiday special. Some great guests who are going to be dropping by and some special episodes. And don't miss Christmas week, Trek's Picard Legacy, a look inside the making of Star Trek Picard and what could be with Star Trek Legacy with Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, Terry Metalis, Todd Stashwick, and more. So don't miss it. And that's going to do it for us. So on behalf of Ashley Edward Miller, Robert Meyer Burnett, Darren R. Doctorman, myself, Mark A. Altman, keep on trekking, and gloriously, of course, and happy holidays!